In this video, I'm going to be talking about Watson Conversation and chatbots and how we've been using Watson Conversation and chatbots with digital business automation and how that's evolved over the last couple of years. First chatbots I worked on were often just FAQs, so you ask them a simple question and you get a simple response back. The second generation of chatbots extended this by calling external systems, so they could ask about the weather, they could invoke decision services perhaps to get a price for some life insurance, or they could trigger a business process. So if we jump to the present day, the chatbots that we're writing now are integrating with complex business processes, and this is more complex for a number of reasons. Firstly, the number of different systems that they have to integrate with. So we're talking about workflow, decisions, robotic process automation, systems of record. Secondly, the conversation may continue in parallel while the business process is running in the background. The conversation may stop and resume all the while the process is running. Thirdly, the process may run along a different timeline to the conversation. So for something like a mortgage, this could run for weeks or months. And finally, the business process may need to communicate back with the conversation service in an unpredictable way. The process might get partway through its processing, take an unexpected turn, and it will need additional data from the customer. So if we want a chatbot to be the primary interface between a customer and a complex business process, we have to design our chatbots with these considerations in mind. Now, one of those considerations is how Watson Assistant produces the dialogue. Now we can see here we've got a simple example where if Watson Assistant recognizes this intent called balance, it will respond with some text. And this is typical of our Gen 1 chatbots. If it recognizes an intent, it's going to respond with some simple text. Now, as an upgrade to the simple dialogue node, Watson Assistant added slots, and a slot allows you to identify a particular intent, but then capture multiple parameters from the customer using one dialogue node. So in this example we can see it will look for a person and two numbers, and if it hasn't filled those slots, it knows the phrases to present to the customer to request that information. Slots make it easier to program more complex chatbots, but they're still fairly rigid. So this brings us on to our next-gen chatbots. Here we're controlling the dialogue and injecting dialogue back into Watson Assistant using a business process. So as the process executes, it's able to determine for itself, using its own business rules, if it needs additional information from the customer and what that dialogue should look like. In these situations, the process pauses, the additional dialogue is injected into the conversation AI, and the process waits until the customer provides the additional requested information, at which point the process resumes. So this is the architecture of the demo we're about to see. We have our chatbot UI that's able to interact with Watson Assistant just like a first-gen chatbot. And like a second-gen chatbot, we're able to use webhooks from Watson Assistant to trigger a process to start. Now, these webhooks sit at the end of a dialogue branch and allow Watson Assistant to trigger an API when it gets there and pass some information, some context from the conversation into the process. So this is kind of Gen 2 architecture. So next we have our digital business automation platform. This contains the workflow and the business rules that support our business process. Now, there's nothing particularly special about this workflow application, but we have given it the ability to asynchronously message back to the chatbot and say, I need more information and I need this additional dialogue structure executed in Watson Assistant. To achieve this with a web-based chatbot, we've used Watson IoT. So the chatbot maintains a connection through IoT, and we send from the digital business automation platform, we send a message into a particular topic that the chatbot is listening to. Our web-based chatbot is only going to be expecting a response from Watson Assistant when it's made a request. We also have to appreciate that the customer may have started a completely different conversation with the chatbot by the time a request for some additional information arrives, and we can't interrupt that conversation flow. So there's a few moving parts, but this will make more sense when we actually see the demo running. Okay, so I'm just loading the chatbot now, and just like a Gen 1 chatbot, this can respond to simple questions. So what is my balance? And it will reply with some predefined text. It's not actually calling an API to retrieve a balance, it's just responding to that text. Just like a second gen chatbot though, it can use the slot capability in Watson Assistant to start a process. So if I say something like I want a loan, it will ask me if I'm happy to provide the information for that, and it will know it's got 3 slots to fill in. So my full name, the amount of the loan, and the term. Now with these 3 parameters, it has enough information to actually start the business process. And with these parameters, this will go straight through and will be approved based on what we know about Dan. All the rules will pass. So the chatbot will confirm, and we will immediately see a response back from the workflow system to say, I have received a new message for you. So if I open the message, we can see that the request has completed and the loan has been approved. Now if I reload the chatbot and reset the data, so let's look at a more complex example. So what is my balance? I can still do this kind of thing. Am I rich? And it's advising a savings product, but I'm going to say I want a loan. And here we'll provide some different information that will force the process down a different route. So we'll ask for a slightly larger loan this time, and we'll have this over 36 months. Now as soon as I press enter, this will start the process, but the process is going to encounter a problem with this application. It's going to question the affordability of the loan, and it's going to determine that it needs more information to proceed. So I'll kick that off now. We get the response back from the chatbot, say great, we're processing, and then we'll get the message from the underlying workflow system. So new messages. See, at this point I could go off and start talking about pet insurance, but the asynchronous nature of the messaging means we're not interrupting that new conversation flow. But I'll stay with the loan application. So new messages. Now I'm learning that I need to provide more details, and when I click this collect data button, we're now into new dialogue that Watson Assistant didn't know about. So this is coming from the underlying process, and the process is telling the customer through Watson Assistant that we need to know your annual income and monthly mortgage amount. So I'm happy to provide that because I want the loan. So I'll provide salary and mortgage information that I know will cause the loan to be approved. Now that data is sent back into the process resumes, some additional affordability checks are performed, and we'll see a message coming back from the process. Our request has been completed, and we can see that the loan has been approved. So that concludes the demo. Thanks for watching.